Our next speaker is going to be Investigator Ash Abdelmuti from Orange County Sheriff's Department, assigned to the Regional Narcotics Suppression Program. Thank you. Good morning. Okay, a little about my background. I've been with the Sheriff's Department approximately 18 years. Currently assigned to RSP, which is a multi-agency FBI and DEA task force. What we focus on in my current assignment is cartel-related cases, drug trafficking organizations, or larger networks within the states that are distributing narcotics. Our main focus is on hard dope, which is meth, heroin, cocaine, and obviously heroin is going to be mixed into your cocaine and heroin. We'll talk about that. Prior to that assignment, I worked on our Sheriff's South Narcotics, which is a street team for the Sheriff's Department, comprised of just Sheriff's employees. Prior to that assignment, I worked on our Sheriff's Gang Enforcement team. I worked control operations, and I worked custody operations. Throughout my career, I've dealt with individuals who are users of narcotics, dealers, street levels, or larger mid-level type dealers. And now obviously I deal with the guys that are actually trafficking this stuff. The people I deal with today, most of them are non-users. They're businessmen. They don't touch cocaine, they don't touch heroin, physically as far as touching it, or actually consuming it as an end user. They're in it for the money. And we'll talk about just a basic overview of some of the investigations that we're seeing and how they tie into fentanyl. And then, Jennifer talked about how our overdoses have increased. People are dying from this stuff, which is basically the cartels killing off their customers. Why would they do that? And we'll talk about this later on and explain why this is happening. Again, we'll talk about street level cases, we'll talk about some major level cases, some trends in Orange County, and then I'll explain why fentanyl. Why is it fentanyl making a huge, it's not a comeback, but huge appearance in our street narcotics end users. Everywhere we go, we see fentanyl, we hear fentanyl. In Orange County, when I first came across fentanyl, was probably 6, 7, maybe a little longer, years ago. And you would catch end users with fentanyl patches. They're prescribed, they get them on the black market, and like Jennifer talked about, they're timed release, they're controlled. So when you put a fentanyl patch, you're probably not going to overdose from using a fentanyl patch. They're legitimately prescribed. But what we're seeing now is we're seeing fentanyl, pure fentanyl mixed into the drugs. Most of our end users, when they're asking for fentanyl, they're looking for the patches. But a lot of our end users aren't looking for a pure, deadly dose of heroin to get that next high. We're seeing it in almost every form. We're seeing it at the law enforcement level in pure fentanyl form, but 90% of the time it's coming in concealed as either a prescription drug, such as the Oxycontins, all the hydrocodones. We're seeing it coming in as heroin, which is probably the most common one I've seen. It's mixed into heroin. We're seeing it in cocaine. We're seeing it in ecstasy pills. Your street user goes and buys a ecstasy pill. They've been using ecstasy for 10 years. They go to a new dealer who's supposedly has some good, strong stuff, and they're buying an ecstasy pill. What they don't know is they're buying a pill that's fentanyl. It's not ecstasy. It's a counterfeit ecstasy pill. Guys are using oxycontins or any kind of the hydrocodones. They steal a pill from mom's cabinet. They use it, it runs out to go buy a pill on the street level. You're paying probably 20 bucks, maybe 40 bucks for one single pill, depending on the size of the dosage. You can go buy them now from a new dealer around the corner who claims he's got the good stuff, and he's only going to charge you $5 a pill instead of $20 or $40. But what you don't know is what you're buying is a counterfeit pill, and it's actually fentanyl. Same with your heroin. Your heroin user goes and buys a balloon of heroin, spends $10 for it so he can get his next high. Rumor is this new dealer around the corner has really good heroin. Heroin is probably the most stepped on or most drug that's going to have the most cut in it. They buy it, you can use all kinds of different materials to cut it, from sugar to anything that looks brown. You can stick in the heroin and increase the volume so you can make a profit. By the time the end user who gets it on the street and buys his little balloon of heroin, it's probably 5% heroin, and then 95% of cut. So your high isn't going to be as good as a better quality heroin. Now you take that same 5% of heroin, throw in some fentanyl, now you have a pretty good high, or a deadly dose of fentanyl, and that's the last bullet you're going to use. When we do our investigations at a street level, these guys are, like we saw earlier here in these previous slides, you're going to find somebody 1 or 2 pills, 4 or 5 pills at max for an end user. You're going to find a couple balloons of heroin. You're going to find a couple of grams of cocaine. You might find some powder that's pure fentanyl, not as common from our perspective in law enforcement, but you're going to find it cut with something else. This is your end user. This is the person who's trying to get high, trying to get the best high, the most for their money. People that are selling it, the sales indicia is going to be your common sales indicia, just like any other drug. Just like you would go after a dealer selling meth, selling cocaine, selling heroin, you're going to have your common indicators, packaging, typically packaged in Ziploc bags or balloons or paper bindles. You're going to have currency, rubber bands, good indicator of somebody who's selling narcotics on a street level. You're going to have payo sheets, basically a tally of who owes how much and who bought how much and how much you have left over in narcotics versus how much money you've made, so you can pay your suppliers. They're all going to have scales. They've got to weigh their stuff out to make sure they're not underselling or overselling their product. At the end of the day, it's all about a profit. Once you put your sales case together, obviously send it to the district attorney's office, and they'll prosecute. Ben Missing will be here later on. He'll talk about the prosecution side of things. But as far as specific fentanyl sales indicia, it's no different than any other case. You're not going to find a different type of payo or a different type of packaging. I've probably come across one case where a person said, hey, be really careful with this. It's China white heroin. If you touch it and it gets on your skin, it could kill you. That's how powerful this stuff is. The person who was selling it really believed he was selling China white heroin. Those of you guys in law enforcement and have dealt with narcotics, which most of you have, China white heroin is this big thing you hear about, China white heroin. It's the most pure form of heroin. It's big, it's expensive. It's like $80,000 for 1 kilo of China white heroin. Well, that's what they're referring to for as far as kilos of fentanyl. They call them China white heroin because they're so powerful. And they're trying to sell them, they're not selling them for $80,000 because nobody's going to buy it. But they're selling them like you would sell a kilo of heroin, which is $25,000 for 1 kilo of heroin. This is a video of, let me back up a little bit. As far as the way this is coming in, the pure fentanyl probably most likely comes from China, gets sent to Mexico, to the labs out there, and the chemicals do, and they put together these kilos. It comes across in 2 forms. It comes already either cut, mixed into the heroin or the cocaine, and smuggled across in kilos, or it comes in pure kilo form. Not as common. We are seeing it. We'll do a search warrant on a residence and find 25 kilos of what looks like heroin, and then 1 kilo of what's probably pure fentanyl, or cocaine, and then a kilo of pure fentanyl. It's smuggled across. It comes across our borders, and it's smuggled like any other narcotics. I'm going to show you a couple of videos of it being smuggled across. It's in vehicles, compartments. It's on people's person. Larger quantities, 99% of the time they're coming across in vehicles. As you can see, it's a heading compartment in the vehicle. Gino Rodriguez, one of our highway interdiction guys, works the 5 freeway over by the St. Louis checkpoint. And that's what he does every day. He stops on average probably at least 1 car a week that's loaded with narcotics. The dopes come from Mexico in here, and then the money goes down south. So if you work the south side of the freeway, you're probably going to stop cars with U.S. currency, narcotic proceeds going back to the cartel, and the dope coming this way. This is another one where it's a hidden compartment and a transmission.
No, it wasn't me. It was Gino.
I worked a case probably a year and a half, maybe 3 years ago. When I first heard about fentanyl, I got the same emails that you guys probably got. Beware, this new substance is out, it's deadly, don't touch it, don't be around it. But I hadn't personally seen powder or pure form fentanyl until probably 3-4 years ago. The patches we've seen all the time, and those obviously wear gloves, don't touch them, and they were real. We had seen them and we had dealt with them. We knew a guy who was transporting dope from Oregon. He would come from Oregon, pick up dope in LA, and then he would drive it back to Oregon. We did a surveillance on him, watched him come down from Oregon, watched him meet with the supplier, and watched him pick up a bunch of fire extinguishers. Loaded up the fire extinguishers in his car, and then started heading back towards Oregon. Got him stopped probably an hour or 2 into his drive, and CHP sees some fire extinguishers. Well, I'll tell you what not to do is go buy a saw, go to the CHP station, and have 4 or 5 CHP guys staring at you and your partners, and then start sawing this fire extinguisher open. Because all you're going to do is just create a big dust storm. But we're cops. We want to see what's in it. We want to see the trophy. We just stopped this guy. Fortunately for us, this was meth. We later see some fire extinguishers that supposedly had white China heroin in them and did not cut those open. But had it been had it been fentanyl, we probably all would have dropped dead. No gloves, no protection. And it took us probably an hour to get this thing open. 2 of us were sawing away, taking turns. We broke a couple saw blades doing it too. Again, no protection. But, like I said, you read about it on emails, but you don't experience it, you don't see it. Now, it's real. You see people dropping dead. Sergeant Serapata talked about a case they had maybe a month ago or so, where people bought some cocaine, what they thought was cocaine, ended up being fentanyl. One of them, I believe, dead, and two survived. It's real. We see it in our neighborhoods, we see it in the areas we patrol, we're seizing it. Jennifer calls all the time, hey, that heroin you booked in isn't heroin, it's fentanyl. Hey, that cocaine you booked in, actually it's fentanyl. It's happening all the time. You saw some videos of Gino pulling out dope from compartments. Here's a case where we hit, this was actually in LA County. We served a search warrant on a house, and they had 2 cars parked in the garage. Tore the place up, couldn't find anything. Had a dog run on the car and eventually found some compartments. And in the hidden compartments was, each car had 25 kilos of cocaine. Lab still has it. I'm not sure if you guys have it, Denver, or LA has it, but not sure if any of that's fentanyl. But I'm pretty sure at least one of those is probably going to be contaminated or pure fentanyl. And then you see it something like this, where it's just in the trunk, not in compartments, just sitting in the trunk for you to find it when you pull them over. Pure fentanyl, if you see it coming in kilos, it's going to be used for two things. It's most likely going to be used as to be cut here on the state side, or it's going to be sent to these pill press labs where they're going to actually use that fentanyl to make counterfeit pills and press their ecstasy, all the different hydrocodone or oxy-type pills, and then sell them as normal pills, normal ecstasy. Basically concealing your fentanyl. You're really buying fentanyl, but you think you're buying something else, which is more dangerous than buying fentanyl. If you know how deadly fentanyl is and you buy fentanyl, intending to buy fentanyl, then you know how much you can probably take or should take. But if you buy heroin, and you've been slamming heroin for the last 20 years, and you use a certain amount of dosage, you buy from a new supplier, or the same supplier who happened to get a shipment of heroin that contains fentanyl, you slam the same dosage, but now it's the majority of it's fentanyl, and you got a deadly dose. This was a case the DA put together, I want to say 2015 maybe, and they seized several pill presses and thousands of pills that were packaged and ready to go. Okay, we talked about white fentanyl. Average kilo of fentanyl is about $3,000. The kilo of heroin is $25,000. Jennifer talked about fentanyl is about 30 to 50 times stronger than heroin. So let's do the math. If you buy 1 kilo of heroin, 1 kilo of fentanyl, you're at $28,000. And then go buy about 30 kilos of cut. Mix it all together, and now you have about 32 kilos that you can sell for approximately $25,000. Better yet, you can come in and say you're the strongest cartel out there, put your stamp on it, which is your branding, your narcotics, and then sell it for $22,000. Sell it for $21,000. Look at the profit you're making versus the guys that are actually, doing the real heroin side of things and selling it for $25,000. Does it cost $25,000 for a kilo of heroin? No. But that $25,000 includes the product, the labor, the cartel paying off whoever they got to pay off, cost of loss. The cartels factor everything in, just like Nordstrom's does. When you go buy a shirt from Nordstrom's, the guy who sold a shirt last week, you paid for it. Right? That's how they make money. They have a loss factor in there. Same with the cartels. That's why it's $25,000. But when you can take a kilo of fentanyl and make tons of kilos for a fraction of the price, that's why it's out there. Now, people ask, well, why are they putting it out there and killing their customers? I believe, not that I've ever sat down with a cartel leader and asked them, well, why are you doing this? But I believe, based on my experience in these investigations, it's not intentional. They don't have the exact formula yet. You can take this kilo that's been cut with fentanyl, and maybe this corner here might be 80% fentanyl. And this corner here might be 0% fentanyl. So if you happen to buy a gram from this corner, you're fine. But you buy a gram from this corner, you got yourself 100% gram of fentanyl, a deadly dose. It's not being mixed properly. They're not chemists. You got, some runners, some guys who may have some backgrounds, but they mix it in some shed. It's not being tested to see is it equal across the entire kilo, and that's why we're seeing what we see today as far as overdoses. Money. That's the primary motivation for the cartels. Money. Money equates to power, obviously, but money. Money is the number one motivator for these drugs. You take the money away, there's nothing else to work for, right? That's why fentanyl's here. Because fentanyl is a lot cheaper to make, and you can make as much of it as you want. It's synthetic. You don't have to wait for seasons and growing stuff and harvesting and then making it. It's at your disposal, as many as you want. You want 100 kilos? Here's 100 kilos. Then you can take those kilos because they're so powerful and make tons of cocaine and tons of heroin or counterfeit cocaine and heroin. The money is just like the drugs. It's thrown into vehicles, it's concealed, and it's driven across the border. But our cartels are getting a lot smarter. A lot smarter. Now they're using Bitcoin. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Bitcoin. If you're not, research it. When I first started looking into Bitcoin in March, Bitcoin was $1,200 for one coin. Today, I looked it up, I think it's $5,600 for one coin. And it's all encrypted. I can go buy $1 million in Bitcoin, wait to get my shipment of my narcotics, and once I get it in hand and I like it, I just transfer $1 million to Mexico. No fear of it getting hit at the border. I don't have to pay somebody 6% to launder my money, because that's what they pay on average, 6%, to get that money laundered to Mexico. I don't have to worry about a dirty courier who's going to rip off $300,000-400,000 and say the cops took it. It's a safe way to do it. But they still use the old school ways of sending it back, because they're not all up on the Bitcoins and the wires and going down to the LA fashion district and depositing money there, buying products, shipping it to Mexico, selling it back to that same person at a lower price to launder the money. They'll send that money back in vehicles and tires, anything you can think of as far as a compartment in a vehicle, they've done it, and we've seen it. Gino Rodriguez, if you guys ever want to talk to somebody about cars, that man can profile any narco trafficking vehicle, any vehicle. It doesn't matter if it's a BMW, $100,000 car, or if it's a 1970s Honda, Accord. He can profile his vehicles, and he can check these cars and find compartments in them. This is inside of a tire that was on a vehicle.
Was your 80,000 for Father? I can't read what that says. Oh, yeah.
Some of you are probably wondering if all of our deputies are issued saws and all these wazoo tools. No. Gino actually has a garage over at the Segmony Border Patrol checkpoint. It's like a mechanic garage. You walk in there, he's got a car lift. He actually lifts cars. That's how he gets underneath them and gets a transmission trap. He's got every tool you can think of to basically chop up a car and put it in a couple of grocery bags. The people that transport the money across Mexico aren't always working for the same cartel that owns that money. These could be courier services that do it for a bunch of people. That's why when you see the money, you'll see labels on it, like this package is for Chewy, this package is for Huevo, this package is for Clavo. They're to go to different people. There was a recent case, September, DEA hit some locations in Queens, New York, and they seized over 140 pounds of pure fentanyl. That's a lot of fentanyl. Our department, probably 6-7 months ago, maybe even sooner, established a new policy on collecting narcotics, period. You can't look at fentanyl and recognize it, but just by saying, hey, this is fentanyl, like we used to. Majority of police officers who have been on the job for more than a couple of weeks have seen methamphetamine, heroin, and cocaine, ecstasy, and several prescription pills, to be able to look at it without touching it and say, oh, that's cocaine, because I've seen it a million times. That's methamphetamine, seen it a million times. Oh, heroin. Shoot, I can smell it before I even go in the car. You smell that vinegary smell? That's heroin. I know there's heroin in this car. Can't do that anymore. Because now all these items that I just described, all of them could be fentanyl, or all can contain fentanyl. So we treat them all as fentanyl. We collect them, wear the gloves, the glass, eye protection, breathing protection, collect them, package them, double bag them, write what you think it is, if you suspect it to be heroin or meth or cocaine, and submit it to the lab, and the lab will test it. If you suspect it's fentanyl, it's a white powdery substance, the person tells you, hey, you know what, it's fentanyl, I just bought it, it's a gram of fentanyl. Definitely indicate and use extreme precautions. Indicate on it, possibly fentanyl. Even though we treat it all like fentanyl, but just give it that extra precaution that, hey, this might be fentanyl. If it's going to be an open or exposed powder that's laying on a table, or you walk in a hotel room, which is very common, you're doing a search, you're making contact with somebody for some reason, and there's some powder on on the TV stand, or powder on the nightstand. You probably don't want to go in there and touch it. Where years ago you would take a credit card out of your wallet, you'd probably slide it all up, put it in the bag, collect it, you would nick test it, you'd be like, aha, just like I suspected, it's cocaine. You guys are all going to jail. And not like we can arrest them anymore because now it's a ticket, it's a misdemeanor. But I'm going to give you a ticket. You can't do that anymore because that could be fentanyl. And if you ask them, hey, what is that? Oh, it's cocaine, sir. Are you sure? 100%. I've been using cocaine my whole life. Cocaine. They don't know. They really believe it's cocaine, but it could be fentanyl. That's where you call Sergeant Sarah. He comes out with his team, who's actually equipped to go into these places where the powder is exposed, where you can breathe it in, and they can go in and collect it and go from there. The lab team can also come in. I'll let Sergeant Sarah talk about that during certain instances, if it's not too dangerous. And they can also do some collections and collect some evidence, like fingerprints and take photographs and that kind of thing. As far as just a quick overview, I know it's real short, but as far as fentanyl goes, it's money. That's the major motivator. That's why we're seeing it, and that's why we're going to continue to see it. I've never come across actual carfentanil. I hope I don't. But who knows? Maybe that's the next thing, where now you can spend a little less money and make a lot more. It's all about money. If they can make money with it, it's going to come, and it's going to keep coming. So just as a precaution, use all the resources you have. Jennifer talked about how deadly this stuff is. It is. I mean, people are dying left and right from it.